Good day, folks. Hey, this is Dr. Terry and Tom from the Metaphysical Mysteries, and we have with us one of our award-winning psychic mediums, Dani Jo Butler from the great state of South Dakota. How you doing, Dani? You doing good?
Fabulous. Thanks for having me again.
You bet. Well, folks, people get asked all the time about, psychic mediums and who's good and who's not, who we recommend. And well, you got one right here that we do recommend. And, they also ask about how they do their work. How do they actually make connections, or can they make connections every time? Or is it like a phone call, or how does it all work, And so Dani Jo's got years of experience, plus ghost busting experience on top of that. And she's a teacher, and she teaches all these things. So, I guess we would start out with, because we have had you on before, so people can see that and see where you've come from. But if you were going to teach somebody how to get started, what is it that they hear or see, or how is it they gather information if you're a psychic medium, and how can they do it?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. In talking to people will say, oh, you have these gifts that are amazing. And I always stop them and say, everyone has gifts and abilities. We all have the ability to connect to the other side. It's just how much energy we put towards strengthening those muscles in the body. And anybody can do that. It might be harder for some than others. That's a valid fact. But when I started doing mediumship, we have different senses that we use. We see, we hear, we feel, we smell, we taste, things like this. And so in the beginning for me, it was just images of photographs and objects in my mind. And so that would be what people call clairvoyance. Well, in the beginning, also, you don't know what you're doing. So you don't know what a picture of an apple means. Does it mean New York? Does it mean apple pie? So you have to really try to start interpreting things like that and what they mean for your client, or be very specific of, this is just what I'm seeing. I don't understand what it means for you, but this is what I see. And actually what I've found is I teach, the more you try to step back from interpretation and give what you get, the less you mess things up, right? So sometimes we do get in the way with that. But the one thing that was really cool for me is when I was doing readings, and I got to that point where I just felt like I needed more information about those photos, Spirit said to me, did you know that you could ask questions? And I was like, that's a novel idea. What do you mean I could ask questions?
Yes.
So then it was like, okay, what does that apple mean? Show me more. How does this apply to my client? Is there a specific thing or feeling about it? And while it's all interpretation, so it's not like you're going to have a specific answer every time, over time you grow stronger with your guides and with your information coming through, that you get more confident and clarity in things. So the one factor that will never change is that everyone that you communicate with on the other side is individual. And so if you think, man, I've had a week of fabulous readings, and then along comes John Henry, who didn't like to talk, it's probably going to be a crappy reading because he's hard to communicate with. And that's a real valid thing in readings, where mediums will have days where they feel like they didn't do a good job or give their clients what they needed. But you have to remember that you're dealing with the people who are deceased and how they communicate, what they want to share with their person. The person sitting in front of you who might have expectations that have led them to disappointment. And then, of course, you're dealing with your skills and your memories that they're choosing to use to work through. So a lot of those factors play into everything. But when I teach mediumship, I teach 3 different levels. And beginner's mediumship, we talk a lot about the process, what you're really doing, why you're doing it. And probably the biggest thing I talk about is integrity. And I go over and over with integrity, because there are so many people, as you know, out there not doing the work for the right reasons, and they're the ones that give us a bad name. So, it's always that we work for spirit, always, not for your client, not for yourself, not for fame, but we're working for spirit and their intention. And so that's a big part of my teaching. And then, really simply, I take them through some clair practices. So these clairs are your clairvoyance, clear seeing. I have them close their eyes. Remember, what were you doing at lunch yesterday? Visualize that. See the colors, see the food on your plate when you're eating. See all of those things in your mind and let it play out like a little movie. We do clear hearing. Sit in a quiet room and listen to all the sound. There's so much sound in a quiet room if you pay attention to it. We do the clear tasting of enjoying a meal, the smelling, just smelling the surroundings. So we do all of these practices that show them that they already have the senses, and now they have to strengthen them and tune into them to work with spirit. Probably within the first few hours of working with students, I have them connecting to the other side. We teach them to connect with their gatekeeper guide who kind of helps protect them and keep them safe. And then we either pull out a picture or an object and we just go at it. And everybody always freaks out in that minute because it's like, oh my God, here I have to, perform. But I've never had someone who could not connect. Now, I have people who get very little information because they're so nervous that they can't keep their vibration high enough to get the information, but I've never had anyone who couldn't connect. So go ahead. You want to ask?
Yeah, I was going to just say, you're talking about taking and focusing their senses. So, because we walk through life and we take for granted what we're hearing and we just dismiss it. We take for granted what we're seeing and dismiss it. But when you focus on just eyes and you look at it, focus just on ears or taste and sound, whatever it is, the senses, I think that's when you really start thinking, I really need to listen better. I need to hear what I'm doing. I need to look at what I'm seeing. And, and I agree with that. I mean, that's what I do when I teach people things, same principles, because you really have to focus on what you have available. Those are the tools that spirit uses, is your five senses. And of course, your sixth sense is the ability to connect those to the other side and so forth. But I was talking last night because I was teaching a class and we were talking about humor on the other side. And that was part of it. And so it's funny. I mean, at one time, it wasn't last night, but back while, I had a family member bring something in, and when I connected to the other side, it was like a whole panel of people, and they were just laughing their ass off at what question he had. It was all funny. They eventually calmed down and they got serious and they gave the answer, but it was so funny. And I don't think people realize there's a lot of humor on the other side. They think a lot of stuff is funny. And, because we always take it so seriously, but I try to be real lighthearted about a lot of it. I mean, when there's time to be serious, but anyway, I don't know if you run into humor or not.
Oh, absolutely. It's probably one of my favorite things. I might be in the middle of one of the most emotional moments with a client, bringing through something they really needed to hear. And the next words out of their person's mouth is something so dumb that I laugh out loud.
Yes.
And they look at me like, and then you could tell they're like, oh, I can't wait for this. Yeah. But yes, the humor is there, and inappropriateness, like just like people are when they're living, with inappropriateness. Sometimes I'm a sugarcoater, so sometimes I have a really hard time, like, oh, I'm going to say it because you told me to, but oh, this feels a little much. Yeah. And everybody always laughs like, oh yeah, that's so my dad.
Yeah. I absolutely correct. And the inappropriateness is there. And I just let it all hang out and said, now hold on, this is going to be a little challenging for you, but here's what is said, and that's funny. And I've got certain people, I don't know if you have this, but certain people that their loved ones are around so much, I connect with them just like instantaneously. So I don't even try it. And these certain people are constantly hooked up to me because I'm around these loved ones. And so they're constantly and they're telling me things that they wouldn't necessarily tell them. And we're having our own conversation over here. Yes. And the loved one's going, hey, now that's not fair. But it's like you make friends with them, and you're getting that data and you can give the data, of course. But yeah, I don't know if you get that or not.
Oh, absolutely. I've had actually people's loved ones tell me that I'm doing a good job. I've had them make fun of me for the way that I work. I've had them, just really communicate with me about something I needed to hear that had nothing to do with their loved ones reading. It's just like meeting people, that you would in any encounter. It's still a soul that has a vested interest in you as well. I've had some of them stand in the back of the room like, what are we doing here? Like, and they're holding their Bible, across their chest, like, this is not what I want to be doing today. But they're going to connect with you. They just have to show you that religion was really important and they would not have done this in the living world.
No, and that's what they find out when they get on the other side. They'll go, I didn't believe this was possible at all. And sometimes the loved one did believe it was possible, and they go, you were right. This can be done. I wished I would have known it or believed it.
Yeah,
So.
fantastic stuff, though. A couple of experiences I just had today, really, one of my clients, who does some sex coaching. So this is a little taboo topic maybe for some, but anyway, this is what she does.
Yep.
And her dad, she just went to a retreat where they were teaching this kind of stuff, and her dad literally chimed in, was like, I'm signing up for the next one. And I'm like, oh, come on, this is your daughter. This is awkward. But her dad was like, no, sign me up. I want to go. And she's just cracking up about it.
Yeah. Well, I do tell people that there are spirits that sign up to be in the body just for chocolate and sex.
Yeah, I had a guy who came through he had dated a lady many, many years back, and in her reading, he came through and she was really shocked because he'd been gone a long time. But he showed me every detail, and I was like, okay, I got it. Like, I know you had sex in the back of your car. I got it.
Oh, yes.
She understands this. But he kept showing it to me.
There's no shame on the other side.
Right.
There's no, I mean, what do they care? That's something I did in the body. Even Edgar Casey, there was a question about, did people ever get judged for sexuality? And he said, no. I mean, you come into the flesh, and that's very much part of being part of the flesh. And we always try to repress that. But on the other side, they don't think anything of it.
Yeah, that's cool. That actually brings me to another subject, well, similar subject. I had Spirit show me one time that, a lot of the stuff going on in the world with like gender stuff and, multiple wives and, just different things that are going on in the world. We judge a lot of that, but they showed me back in history that, a lot of these things have already been done, and that at those times they were acceptable and now they're not. And we just kind of go through phases of that. And who gets to be the judge of that?
Yeah, we do eventually.
Yeah.
But yes, exactly. I mean, as Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun. We just keep redoing it as we come back and do it a different way. And it's incredible. Like marijuana was illegal in many states, and now in most states, or a lot of states, it's completely legal. So it's went from over here taboo, now it's normal, and people are out, dealing with that every day.
Yeah.
It all changes. So you had something?
Yeah, when you said you talked to different folks on the other side, there's that whole concept of your higher self. Is that one of the people that you rely on, or personas, I guess is a better way to say, not people?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think sometimes it's hard to really kind of differentiate. So I'll give you an example of what I mean. Like if I'm communicating with a woman's mother and her mother's coming through, and then all of a sudden I get some information that I know is not coming from her mother, but I don't know where it came from. Mm-hmm. I might say this is coming from your guides, but it actually might be coming from my higher self and me being just connected a little bit higher. It's hard to really put a pinpoint on that situation. But our higher self is always connected to us. It's kind of like an extension of us. That higher self is actually very wise, has all the knowledge and wisdom. And if we move up into that higher self, we can access like our history and past lives and our purpose here and just all the knowledge. And so I do think that we kind of float up into that when we're working with spirit because we're so high vibration. but I don't know that we necessarily know that's what it is. I often just say, I'm not sure who's telling me this, or your spirit guides are sharing with me, and say it that way, because otherwise they're going to be like, what do you mean this information just randomly came in?
Yeah.
Well, how do we explain that?
Yeah, I totally get that. And sometimes I tell them they put a signature on it if they want to, but other times I get it and there's no signature to it. You can't really tell who it is, but I mean it's legit information. So I just credit that to the higher vibrations coming through, because you have to kind of, people don't realize, I think you have to kind of target your vibrational level. If you're going to deal with dead folks, they're not super high in my book. And then as you move up, you're going to do the God talk. I mean, you're going to be way up here, and your vibration needs to be there as well. And so some people focus their whole practice just on dead folks, and that's fine. And other people focus on more prophecy and higher levels of information that's a broader information for the community at large, the country at large, the world at large, if you will. And I think I've had this where, like somebody will come in and they'll do it in your own language that you respect. And some of mine comes in very Shakespearean English. I noticed that. So I'll hear, holy, holy comes Uriel to present. And I hear that first, it's like a drum roll and trumpets kind of thing. And then I know it's going to be a quote religious thing that's going to come in and they're going to give me some big thing, or holy, holy comes the keeper of the way, Michael, that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of interesting, but it doesn't happen all the time, but it used to happen a lot more. I think when I was first doing it, I kind of needed to know that it was legit, and it wasn't some negative entity trying to masquerade, So, because people do ask that all the time,
Yeah. Yeah. I want to touch back on, because I don't feel like I fully answered your question here, but from the beginning of when I started working till now, my way that I have worked has continued to change, and I feel like it will continue to change as you get more experience or learn different skills. So to kind of give an example, if I were going to sit down to do a reading for someone, how does that happen for me? What do I actually experience? First of all, my mind gets wiped of everything. So if you just told me your name and I'm going to start my recorder, I might have to ask you your name again. So that happens frequently. My mind is just erased completely. And then I just kind of take a deep breath, focusing on this person's energy. And what I start to get are words sometimes, like a relationship of a person who's going to be on the other side for them. Like I might know this person's got a brother that's gone and a mother. So I know that those two people will be coming through. I might also just see an image of a person standing behind them, or a person's image in my mind. And by the age of the person, I might know, oh, this is a person's child or a grandmother. And so I will often start with those first few things that come in and start describing it. Again, over time, I've honed in on different skills where sometimes I just know this is a grandmother, and I know that you have a piece of this person's jewelry because I feel it. And, just start giving a few little details. And then, of course, when they give you some validation that they understand this, then I kind of go a little further and just ask for any memories or things that you'd like to share. Sometimes it's warm and fuzzy, and sometimes it's I am sorry for the things that I couldn't be and do when I was here. And those messages are pretty important for people, even though they're not always ready for them. But I do hear spirit speaking, sometimes in their own voice. So I might hear that they had a really deep voice or a raspy voice. Sometimes it feels very monotone, like I'm just hearing it in my own voice. And I don't always see photos of people. There are some people who don't want to share much, or maybe they're not able to through their own skills. So I might not ever see a photo of them. And I've actually seen photos of people's loved ones that they've showed me after our readings. Some of them are exactly the way that their photo shows them, and some are completely different. So I don't know why that is, but also could be, how skilled they are at sharing with me, or the strongest the connection might have been.
I think that's a great point you're making there. Is they are the other side of this telephone call. They're the other side, and they have to be skilled in lowering their vibration a little bit to get to us, and we have to raise ours. Thus the term medium, meet in the middle kind of thing. And like one of them I had last night just simply showed me a picture of himself, but he couldn't speak. You could tell he would like to, but it was just he wanted me to know he was there and he was looking in, that kind of thing. And so pretty interesting. And I think every psychic medium, correct me if I'm wrong, but that I know of, they kind of create or develop their own language with spirit, with your guides and whatnot. Like you said, you give what's an apple mean? Well, it may mean New York to some people, may need forbidden fruit in another place, who knows? But you kind of develop your own language as to what they mean.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of mediums who really kind of create like a image library where they will work specifically with that library with spirit. I didn't have the patience for that when I was beginning, so I never sat down and did that. But what I have are very familiar things to me. Ducks mean something specific. The flag means something specific. So they know that if they're showing me that, if they show me the flag, it's going to be military service or police officer related, or strong love of politics and country, very opinionated, right? And then I just feel into that, what I think it might mean, or I might just share, all I got was the flag, and you would understand that. But yeah, this is the way that I would describe it to people who are trying to understand, well, why are they not all the same? You and I are not the same. I imagine that we're all like students in school. You have kindergartners up to graduates, okay? Some of those kindergartners through graduates are living, and some of those kindergartner through graduates are deceased. So if you're communicating with a kindergartner and they have very few skills, they're not going to be able to share with you what a graduate would be able to share. And you can tell the difference because I have spirits who will come through and specifically say in detail with words what they want me to say word for word. I wish they all worked that way because that's easy. But that would be a very advanced soul who has a lot of skill set. And that's how I see it. Not that that's the proper way or correct way, but when I try to explain it to people, that makes a lot of sense for people to understand.
Right. I would agree with that. And let me ask you this. We're talking about advanced stuff. What would you say as you teach your things, the most advanced things that you try to teach? I mean, obviously people have got the groundwork done. They've moved up. They can do regular readings, but they want to advance to the highest possible level. What kind of things are we talking about?
So there's a couple of different things I would say. I think the biggest thing is that people can get connected to the other side, but they have a hard time with being open to letting memories come in and letting those real details that they need to give their client. So being open to that and really surrendering to letting the person bring you the information instead of trying to force it. But I also feel like taking them a little bit higher and recognizing that they can tap into those spirit guides and those past lives by just being connected to this person's energy. So if you're seeing something that you bring up to a person and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, feel into that. Is this a person's past life? Are you picking up on a spirit guide, not a loved one? Because I actually literally had that happen. I was working with a client I had seen before, and there was this man standing behind her that looked like a court jester. And I'm so confused. I'm like, I have no idea what this means. Well, right about the time we finish up her reading, I realized that this is a spirit guide, and this is the first time I've connected with a spirit guide for a client. So when I shared that with her, she was like, I'm so intrigued. I want to learn more. So we actually set up another appointment for me to come and do a spirit guide reading for her, just as a test, a sample. I had never done it before. But the cool thing that happened with that reading was I was driving to her place, thinking about him, hoping that he would come in and give her what she needed. And when I got there, I said, he wants me to tell you that he died in the year 1030.
Wow.
And she goes, 1030 is my birthday. And
Wow.
I said, of course it is, because that is the thing that you needed to hear and I needed to hear to be able to trust that this information is coming from spirit and we can trust it because she can't validate anything I'm telling her,
Right.
right? And so how do we trust that? Well, we trust it through those little synchronistic things that they give us that make sense.
And they call it what, evidentiary mediumship. So, giving me something that I couldn't possibly know, that kind of thing. And yeah, and if they're given the higher stuff, then clearly, yeah, exactly that. I get that. So how do you prep a sitter, right? We talk about the medium all the time, but the sitter is an important portion of this. And for those folks out here who don't know what a sitter is, that's the person that's maybe paying the money for the mediumship to work. They're sitting down there and listening and trying to interact. So the sitter needs to be prepped in some way. What do you plan on doing with those folks?
So I have a lot of information on my website and I post a lot of information about what a good sitter is, but you can't always prepare a person to be a good sitter. So what I do personally is when I sit down with someone, I can tell if they're going to be a good sitter or not. And so I might have a conversation with them about expectations, about the fact that I'm not there to prove anything to them, but to be the messenger for spirit, and it's up to them to be open to the messages. And so then I might also explain to them that just because your grandmother is your favorite person and that's who you want to hear from today, your dad who never showed up in your life might be the one who's coming to have healing for you. So you need to be open to that. And I let go of expectations, whether they're going to hear what I actually said or not is up to them. But those are hard sitters because they don't want to validate the things that they don't want to talk about.
Right.
So, and those are for a beginner medium or a medium who's still learning, those are days and readings that are hard.
Very. Yeah, it really is. Yeah. So Tom, you had something?
Yeah, this goes to a topic we've talked about a few times, about the ethics of all this. When you get a message, or maybe you're getting a reading on a person, and it's almost like the person doing the reading gives them the fluff and buff instead of the real hardcore message that needs to be said. How do you impart that to new students to carry through that, or what's your thoughts on that?
That's a really good question. So we talk about leaving the person better than we found them. So this means there's some due diligence with information that comes in and how they deliver it and what they would and wouldn't deliver. So it's always important to give the message, but I'll give you an example. I have clients, of course, who have loved ones who were murdered or there's questionable deaths and they want answers. And I may know the answers that they are seeking, but spirit may say to me, them knowing this information is not going to benefit or help their healing. So I may not be going to tell them, yes, you should be angry at that person. They had some involvement in this, because they're not going to heal if that's all we tell them. So I often, in my own circumstances, then will tell them what I need to tell them about the fact that your loved one is not coming back. If we had that information, what would it really benefit us if we knew or didn't know? And life is about healing and forgiveness and moving on. So we have conversations like that, but I do just preface my students with being careful with the information they share when it comes to liability, and really understanding the difference in knowing this information is more for me than it is to share. You might get a feeling that your client isn't going to live a long time. That isn't something that you want to say.
Right.
You might just really say to this person, I feel like your health needs to be a priority.
Yeah,
Or
I've had some mediums that will simply, well, some will ask, if you really want to know this, I will tell you, but it is, I always tell them, this is a reading. This is not reality. I mean, readings are what readings are. And we have the ability to change a lot of things before. So I tell them a lot of times it's like your arm. Your arm goes up in one. This is today, tomorrow, the next couple of days. But you get out there ways and it spreads out. You got lots of different ways to go. depending upon your free will and what you choose to do. Like if you want to go to the doctor and get fixed, you want to start eating better, you want to get proper supplements or whatever you're doing, speaking of health. So I tell them that's trying to predict the future is very difficult when free will is involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So an extension of this, how often do you find, because, some of the people we've had on the show have talked about, we're here for lessons. How often do you get information that you're not allowed to impart because it interferes with them learning their lesson? Do you run into that often?
Rarely, but it does happen. Probably some of the experiences that I could give you examples for are, let's say I have a woman who's constantly going through men who are not good for her. And I have a feeling there's going to be a really bad situation. I can't prevent her from that lesson, even if I told her. So I'm going to hold that. And I do oftentimes ask their guides to be present with them to help them find an easier way to learn that lesson. So I know if I can make a difference just by prayer, I'll do that. But I also know we're all here. We got things we got to do. But yes, there are times I had a client who I knew wasn't going to live a long time. And I was just told to tell this person that nobody's promised tomorrow. Remember to make every moment count and spend the time you can doing the things you want to do while you have the opportunity. So, when I know those things, I just ask what would be beneficial in this moment. But I do sometimes see people with negative events coming up that I won't share with them. I will share other information if I can help change the situation. But, even if I've given you a warning, I'll give you an example. I had a guy, I was reading for a group. It was right after a funeral. And the family asked me to come together to do this group while they were all together. So I did. And the brother of the man that had passed was there visiting. And I said, hey, listen, you have to be really careful stepping off the curb. Please hold on to the vehicle because if you don't, you're going to fall and end up in the hospital and get very sick. And I reiterated this and over, and he still didn't grab onto the vehicle. He fell off the curb, ended up with pneumonia, almost died. And I had told him all that was going to happen. But again, is it even really present in your mind in those moments? We're going about our day and maybe it was a lesson for him in either taking better care or listening or whatever. But even if I do, like I said, give the information, it may still happen.
Right. Makes sense.
People have to make their own way.
Yeah. I mean, I will, when you get really bad information, you do have to kind of weigh that out. And just because I'm getting it doesn't mean it's absolutely going to happen. But if everything stays in line, or if it's one of their I call it milestones that they're trying to hit, yeah, chances are real high that that's actually going to happen, so. And I guess if you get to dealing with people like other mediums that are very well versed, I usually will tell them because they get it and they understand the situation. And I tend to tell them a little bit more than what I might just Joe Sexpack that has no metaphysical sense about them yet. And I really feel like some folks can handle just about anything. I mean, it's kind of like both Tommy and I coming from law enforcement. We've heard everything, seen everything. That's the worst of the worst. And so, what are you going to tell me? I'm going to die next week? Okay. I'm good with that. And, so I kind of judge it on what the person is. What do they have? They get the wherewithal to handle that? And if so, I might do that. And if not, I'll just hold it, and go on. I hate to get being the bearer of bad news. I don't like that at all.
No, and I think when you say it like that, as I'm thinking about it, there are clients that I know can handle things, and I have shared that with them. And actually, it's saved some lives in a couple of circumstances. So I do think there are times when you feel like, oh, I don't want to say this. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I'm going to say it because I know this person can handle it or needs to hear it. I had a client who had a grandchild that was coming due, and they had waited forever for this baby. And I was pulling cards, and I got the heartbreak card, and I was like, this baby's gonna die. This baby is gonna die. And I said, I have to tell you this. You have got to be diligent about watching over this child every second of this child's life. And the grandmother was who I was reading for, and she happened to be present and stopped a SIDS event in the middle of it because she was so diligent about being there as much as she could be, and saved his life.
Yeah. Incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Intervention from on high.
Yes.
That's cool.
And it's amazing when those things can happen, but they don't always. But yeah, and for me personally, I don't judge anyone else by what they choose or what they feel is right. We all have to work with our own thought process and what we feel we can handle and whatnot. I think the hard part for me is I think that people need to really understand that mediumship and psychic abilities are interpretation. And because of the fact that there is so much change, nobody can ever tell you anything set in stone, like you said. And I reiterate that to people because I had a gentleman come to me recently, and his mom was told that one of her sons would die in a motorcycle accident or a bike accident.
Right.
He quit riding motorcycle for years. And I said, let me tell you what that wasn't supposed to do. It wasn't supposed to stop you from living your life.
Right.
Because you gave up what you love and now you're wanting to go back to it, but you're afraid. Right. I said, go back to it and know that if you die doing that, you die doing something you love. I also felt like if that was going to happen, he had already passed that opportunity. But I also said there's a possibility that she misinterpreted what that meant. Because that can happen. We all know that. Sylvia Browne made a huge mistake on TV.
Yes. It happens. And that brings me to what I tell our viewers and listeners is that this is the way Terry does it. Now, do it whatever way you want. But I kind of rate psychic mediums that I interact with. And I say, if you get to the 70 percentile, you've got a pretty good psychic medium. And if you're lucky enough to get somebody at the 90th percentile, above 90%, or right at 90 and above, you get an exceptional, person who can connect and get accurate information. Thus, we wouldn't have you on if you weren't above the 90 percentile because there's just so few and far between, honestly, and we get to see all that. And so I want to tell people that, that's the way I view it when I get an opportunity to interact with somebody. Where are they at on my scale of accuracy? And not every day are you as accurate as you are in other days. Your biorhythms are off or whatever the case may be. And I want people to understand that too, because we all have good days and bad days. And ethically, as Tommy and I have talked, a psychic medium should say, I'm just not connecting to anybody today. Here's your money back, or let's reschedule, that kind of thing. And I know other ones that just try to bull their way through it, and it just pisses off the person who's paying good money for a reading, and it's just horrible, and it just doesn't make any sense at all. And I actually have tested that many times myself, because with certain abilities, I don't want to say I screwed with some people, but I kind of did. And they were actually doing cards, and they were actually moving their finger across, and they were going to touch one card. And I said, in my head, they go, no, not that card. And then they would go back, and then come back to the card. No, not that card. They go back over to this one, and I said, okay, that one. And they would pull it out. And it was funny. My wife said, you were screwing with her, weren't you? I said, just learning communication. She was listening. So I knew, because literally the finger was going over the card. She was going to pull. No, not that one. And went on. It was, so I've done, that's a short little story about it. And finally she gave me my money back. She goes, you're above my pay grade. Here's your money back. It said, go on to somebody else, and I said, okay. It was pleasant. We weren't rude, but it was fun. And I just want people to understand that, you can do things that with your mind that people don't believe, and that's okay. But it's fascinating, and you have a good time with it. And I wasn't trying to screw with it real bad. It was just fun to watch as we did it.
Yeah. I think that's a thing that people don't realize is we wouldn't be classified as mind readers. Like, that's not appropriate to think of it that way. But we tap into that energy. So yes, that our minds can connect, our souls can connect. And, if you sit down and you're thinking about, am I going to pick up on your Playboy magazines? I'm probably going to pick up on your Playboy magazines because you just picked up, sent it to me,
You
right?
send it out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep,
But
exactly.
we don't want to sit and read your mind, know your deepest thoughts. Like, we're here to bring healing.
Yeah.
I have friends that I goof around with too, or like my husband, he goes, this was a few months ago, he goes, don't make any plans this weekend. I have plans. We're going somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh God. Well, why did you even tell me ahead of time? Because now I know where we're going.
Yeah.
And he's like, you do not. And I said, yes, I do. I'm going to write it down on a piece of paper. I'm going to give it to our daughter. And after we go, you can ask her what it says. Sure enough, I knew exactly where we were going. And that doesn't always happen, but it was an energy. He was sending it out.
Right.
And so I just picked up on it super easy. So yeah, he always tells me, stop using your spidey senses is what he says. But I mean, it's natural ability. Sometimes you can't stop it.
It's really hard. And, even showing up in other people's dreams and having a conversation with them in their dreams, that is
Yes.
amazing. Yeah, it's fun to do. I told one lady, and she was a psychic medium, very advanced, in fact. And so I told her, I said, well, I'm going to come to your place tonight. And it wasn't her house. She was staying in a bed and breakfast or something. I said, I'm going to come and I'm going to show up and I'm going to be at the foot of the bed. And I said, then you'll see me. And then I'm going to walk down. And I said, I'm actually going to lay inside of you and look out your own eyes. And she goes, no. I said, yeah. And the next day she came in, she goes, are you crazy? You actually did that. And I said, yeah, I did do that. And she goes, right where you said. And I said, yeah, I know. And here's what the bed looked like and all that. So it was a kind of a quasi remote view astral travel combo thing. And then you lay back in and you could look out, and I could tell what her body was, the issues were, health wise and other things, because, I laid there. And I don't think people realize just exactly how much you can do some of those things. And they wouldn't believe it anyway. But CIA has done a lot of that kind of stuff, and the Army and other remote viewing type things. So they know there's a lot can be done. But the general public certainly doesn't know. And I don't blame them, but it's still fascinating. And so she had a blast.
Yeah.
She thought it was fun. Yeah, it was good. So should we try do a demo here and
Absolutely.
give Tommy the first up the bat?
Put you on my hot list. You're in the hot seat.
The hot seat. There you go.
Game on.
And if you would,
So,
tell us what kind of a reading you're planning on doing if you change up in midstream, so that the viewers and listeners can say, okay, I see the difference, or whatever.
absolutely. So when I sit down with a client and they say, I'm here to hear from my loved ones, that's all I'm going to focus on. It doesn't mean that's all I'm going to get, but that's what I'm going to intend to do. When I have clients who sit down and they say, I don't know what I'm really here for today, I just felt like I needed to be here, then I say, okay, Spirit, it's in your hands. Take me where I need to go. So that's basically what I'm saying to Spirit now is, it's in your hands. Take me where I need to go for Tom. And I'm just going to kind of focus on your energy here for a little bit. So I'm kind of getting a little bit of all kinds of pieces of information. So I'm just going to kind of start rambling, and then I'll tell you as I'm shifting into other areas. But I feel like I'm picking up mostly on what I would call psychic information right now. I feel like there might be like heart disease or heart type illnesses in your family of other people around you. This isn't being shown to me as anything to worry about, but just know that it could affect you because it's around you and your family. I feel a weight off of my shoulders that feels like this next year is going to be freedom for you. And I actually feel like the word freedom is almost like a new thing for you to chew on. Like, what does that actually mean for me? How does that play out? And I feel like you might actually go into almost kind of like a teenage phase again, where you're like, I'm gonna sow my wild oats and try all the new things again. But I feel like that will bring a lot of youth to you and a lot of fun, maybe some unwanted or what we would call mistake type situations, but just having fun. So I feel like 2024 is going to be a great year for you. They're showing me February as a strong connection, but almost like a strong connection with another person. So I don't know if that means meeting up with an old friend or someone coming into your life, but February being really powerful for connections. Could also be like work related, where it's a partnership type thing. Okay, so I'm going to switch into guides, spirit guides coming in, because I feel the energy of people who want to tell you what you need to hear, and writing. So writing, um, focusing on writing a story, telling a story, putting information down on paper. Now is the time. Now is the time. Although I feel like you've already done this, so I don't feel like I'm telling you anything new, but maybe you haven't moved forward with what you're supposed to publish or finish. And I feel like they're really pushing that, like, go for it, blazing, what trailblazer, like, go for it. Um, I feel like a lot of what you're writing is true story, though. Like it actually happened, events that are um, a test of faith. I don't know what this is. It could be around your law enforcement career, but I'm going to leave that with you also. How do you understand the month of August? Is it a birthday, an anniversary, a passing date?
Nothing that it really resonates for me. Nothing that I know
Give
of.
me a second. Hmm. This is going to be an interesting year. Honestly, I see things happening to you that you haven't done in ever or in a long time. The month of August is somewhat about a guest appearance. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means you're going on a podcast that's going to be a connection for you, or making friends, or doing something as a guest appearance, but it feels like a fun time. And I keep seeing dollar signs. So it might be actually a financial transaction type situation. Um, and where do you understand the two men with the same name? So are you named after your dad, dad named after grandfather?
I'm the junior. My father was the senior.
Okay. And your dad is on the other side?
Correct.
So I'm going to switch into mediumship here. So we're actually kind of bouncing through all the things right now. Um, and I know there's law enforcement for you, but is there also fire department in your family?
I've worked as a firefighter, paramedic, police lieutenant, public safety diver, whole assortment.
Perfect. Perfect. So your dad was showing me the symbol for firemen, not law enforcement. So I knew that had to connect somehow for you. Um, I actually feel like your dad is telling me that's where you excelled. So either you loved that work or you just did it fantastically. So that was an important part of your life. Um, your dad doesn't give me the impression of someone who is really eloquent with his words or emotions. I don't feel like he was really good at expressing that. He doesn't give me the warm, fuzzy feeling of a father, right? But I also feel like he was a good dad, but maybe more abrasive or harsh and tough. So I definitely feel like he's acknowledging that. I feel like you've come to terms with that, and you know that's who your dad was. I feel like you were a different man in your life. You wouldn't have been just like that. So you've changed who your dad was and who you are. And there's children for you?
None by blood.
Okay. So I felt like they weren't biological children, but is there three children in your life?
Um, I get, how would we describe this, Terry? Two adopted daughters and a granddaughter, basically.
Oh, perfect.
Not
Okay.
officially adopted, but
Yes. So whether they were legal or biological, spirit doesn't ever show me that, because family is family. It's soul family, right? So those three children for you are going to be those two daughters and a grandchild, but they're still in your life. And I feel like this is a important part of your life and actually has made you a little bit of the man you are today, is having those children and grandchild in your life. And your dad is giving the thumbs up with that. He's showing me a uniform. So you might actually have something that was his that would be uniform related. Do you understand that?
Could be. I have many of his things.
Okay. I almost want to say military. So was he military also?
Yes, the Army.
Okay. So that's where it's going to be. If you have that, it's going to be military related. So I have to laugh because your dad, although I'm switching again into another form, your dad is telling me that you want to know if you're coming back again. Are you going to reincarnate? Do you have to come back again? And your dad is laughing like, well, hell yes, you have to come back again. I feel like you kind of think maybe I'm getting there where I won't have to reincarnate again. And maybe it's a choice. I don't know that is a choice for us. But I feel like your dad is laughing like, yep, you're coming back. You have made great progress in this lifetime, and they want to talk a little bit about a past life for you. Ooh, this is something I'm not familiar with. Hold on a sec. You have a lot of lifetimes that deal with battle and wartime. I'm not really skilled in this history. So my dad always did my history homework. That was probably bad for me as a medium. But what I will say is what I understand about it. I'm seeing a picture of you on a horse with a sword, and you have what looks like a helmet that has almost like a middle piece on it. And I feel like as I see you, you're like yelling and your arm is up, and I feel like this is like we're going into battle. The feeling of that gives me like the Trojan War, Trojan horse type energy.
Yep.
So again, I don't know where that is or what that means specifically. And then I switched to another lifetime that would be war related. But I got to get the details about this again. I'm getting so many little pieces of information, I can't piece it together. You were around when Napoleon was around.
Okay.
You were, what is this battle? I want to say the name of it and I can't get it to come to me. Civil War. I think you would have definitely been here for Civil War. And there's another battle that I can't get the name of. It's like Battle of something. And it's not familiar to me, so I'll probably never be able to pull in the name. These lifetimes were very significant for you in regards to being in battle, defending, fighting for what you believe in. And I feel like this lifetime, some of your message or what you brought with you is peace.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is time to find peace and to know peace and whatever that means in your personal life, in your business life, in your career. And this might also make sense to me now why your dad talked about the fire department being that place where you excelled as law enforcement. Sometimes there's battles you can't avoid, right? They're just there. But you don't have that so much in fire department. Maybe a little bit, but not like you would in law enforcement. But I do feel like you're achieving amazing things in this lifetime. So know that you have made great strides here. I see them placing, like, metaphorically, a gold star on you, but really not a laughing way to say this, but really saying you've done great work here. The other thing is, I really feel like you're a teacher and you're kind of a subtle teacher who likes to lead kind of by example. And I'll explain it like this. My husband is like very adamant. I'm going to tell you how to do this and you're going to follow it. You're not that kind of teacher. You're kind of like, this is the way to do it. And then you're just encouraging, yes, go and do it. And so you're helping in that way, but you don't have to necessarily be vocal and out there in the front and loud and whatnot. So know that that's where you will excel also, is teaching others and helping them. I have one more thing for you, and then I'm going to switch to Terry. Who's the baby boy that would be on the other side for you?
I have no idea. Never had children or anything like that.
Okay, let me see if I can interpret it. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it with you. But I have specifically Archangel Michael, and I feel like he's pretty intentional with working with you. So I see Archangel Michael as having been a lot of a protector in many careers in your life and still works with you now. I also feel the Saint Christopher medal is significant. So somebody might have actually given you that at some point in your life to protect you, or maybe you had one. So I do feel like there are different saints that you could work with, but Archangel Michael and Saint Christopher are definitely two that are connected to you energetically. I'm going to say this baby boy has got to be immediate family for you. So if you didn't lose a child, it could be a sibling, it could be a sibling's child, it could be a grandparent's child. But it either would have been a child lost right at birth or during pregnancy. So this child is around you significantly somehow. May also have a message for someone if you're able to place that, but I'm going to leave it with you for now, and you can kind of let me know on that. Yeah, a lot of important work that you're doing in your life. I feel like you've lived multiple lifetimes in this life already. And somewhat your body's getting tired, or your soul might be getting tired. But this is a great time in life where everything's going to change for you. And like I said, next year is going to be fantastic. So
Awesome.
See where it takes you.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I know it had to be good because you kept laughing through this. I can imagine you must have been inside my head.
I'm seeing you in, so just as an example, that's a great thing for me to share with you, because I don't normally share some of this with clients, but because you've asked me about the process, I'll share it with you. When I saw you going as like a guest star or being on someone's show or whatever that was that I saw, I literally saw you with $ sunglasses, big like plastic beads around your neck that look like a big gold chain. And I'm like, what am I seeing? And I felt like it wasn't necessarily that is what you're going to look like, but it was that having fun and being young and just being silly. And so when I saw it, of course I laughed because you look silly, right? Big old gold chain and $ sunglasses on, but it was metaphoric for me. And a lot of times it is metaphoric what I see, but that's why I laughed, because I'm like, I cannot literally see you putting on.
Probably not. Sounds more like Mardi Gras.
Right? If there's ever that photo, you're going to have to send it to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Terry, I saw you writing quite a bit. So if you were taking some notes, awesome. I think those are good ways to kind of validate things later.
Yep. Taking notes for Tommy.
Perfect. So I'm going to focus on you for a minute here. So when I switch energy, of course, your energies are very different, and not one is better than the other, just different energy. And when I switch to Terry's, I feel a stronger presence that kind of gives me the impression of, remember, you're connecting with energy that you need to ask permission to connect with this energy. And I was like, oh, yes, you're communicating with me. So I don't know if you were consciously doing that, but you were subconsciously maybe communicating with me to tell me that I had permission to connect with you, which is something that we don't talk about. That's actually something that, is a good thing to ask your client. Is it okay for me to do this and whatnot? But I
Oh,
did get that from you, Terry, so I'll just share that with you.
okay.
I got your permission is what I felt like, but I felt like your energy stopped me and made me realize that I needed to ask that. But I did get permission. I felt like you were giving me that. Um, so I'm going to go right into past lives for you because I feel like when I pick up on psychic abilities here, what I'm getting is a very intelligent energy. When I say that, I almost mean like what comes to mind is like Einstein, where a brilliant mind. And when I feel that, I feel that your mind has stored a lot of information from many lifetimes. And what I feel like is very significant to share about that is I think that you, unlike many people, are able to remember all of the information from other lifetimes and other times. So it's almost like your mind is storing all of that, where most of us, it's stored in like the subconscious or the higher self, but it's like your personal mind right now has all of that information, which is fantastic because you can access it for any situation you're in or any encounter, but very rare. I feel like this is a very rare situation. So please know that. Um, but also shows me that you are a more advanced soul too. We would definitely not call you a kindergartner. We would say that you're getting to that graduation type situation where you're not having a lot more to learn before you have finalized your lessons. Could even be that this would be close to your last lifetime. I think that maybe you would want to come back for a few more things because there's things you want to help and teach other people. But I think at some point you could just be done if you were ready. Um, One of the things that I'm seeing significantly is your throat chakra and your voice. And I don't know if you hold back sometimes or if you have held back and you need to be more willing to just share everything. But it almost feels like this isn't necessarily one-on-one with people, but more on a bigger scale of like being able to share all of that information with the world. And I feel like the truth is the light in the world. And so letting your light be shown in the world through your truth. And I feel like now they're going to mirror Tommy's reading and say, this is where you are supposed to write it. So there's some personal lifetime history that you want to write, and maybe you already are, but I do feel like you're supposed to also publish that. It's almost like it's the works and life of, or the times and life of, and it's a biblical lifetime for you of writing about what went on in biblical times as a prophet or seer during those times and being very close to what I feel like would be like Jesus, or knowing all of those I'm going to call them hierarchies in like the biblical times, and you having a lot of information in that lifetime and things that actually would be, I can't say facts, but more the life and times of that person that would be more factual than some of what people tell us. And so the hard part is not everyone's going to believe you, but you also don't have to worry about that. Think about all the things that are out there that maybe you wouldn't believe that someone else wrote, knowing I'm going to put it out there anyway. Do you have your plans to write that book already?
Yeah, somewhat. It's been a point of contention as to whether I want to put all that out, because what I don't need is a whole bunch of people showing up at my house. You know what I mean? It's the world is challenging enough, and I guess I've had lots of challengings through the lifetime. So the more you speak up, the more likely you are to have. I mean, I'm not worried about being a target of violence, but people coming wanting almost biblical interaction, and that's really challenging. So, I mean, the healings that people would want and that sort of thing, I don't talk about much. I mean, I clearly do them from time to time, but it's, do you actually release that and have to deal with the fallout?
So I would tell you it could go one of two ways. You could write it and have it released closer to your exit of this world, where the information still goes out for the people that need it. And then you've done your due diligence of kind of putting that story out there. Or you could do it sooner than later and have a whole new door of opportunity to help people on a different scale. Now, does this level things up for you and change life dramatically? Yes. So you'd have to be willing to make those changes and let go of some things that you have going on now. And only you can be the judge of which one of those is right for you.
Right.
I personally, I personally feel like you would help more people by doing it while you're still here in this world. But again, you and I both know we have the right to choose what works best for us, regardless of our contract and what's expected. So I'll just tell it to you that way. You had longer hair when you were young?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, not crazy, but yeah.
Okay. I just got an image quickly of a younger version of you that would have had a little bit longer hair. And have you in your life been, I can't find the right wording for this, teased for being too vocal or too opinionated or too set in your way?
Probably in some respects, because I say what I say and I know what I say is correct. I try to make sure that.
So I feel like one thing that I want to say in regards to that. So when I say it, I can't really find the right words to say it. It doesn't feel like I'm saying it properly. But when I said it and you said yes, what Spirit is saying is this is confidence.
Yeah.
This is confidence, and you exhibit confidence.
Yeah, the difference between being egotistic and confident is a fine line, and people don't necessarily recognize that. They might say that's being egotistical, and so I try to restrict what I say and almost have to put that disclaimer on there that this is not being egotistical, it's just being confident. Because with the claircognizance, which we didn't talk about what that is, but just a clear knowing level. Somebody brings a situation from me. I said, it's this. Well, how do you know that? I just know that. And I don't have to turn it on. It's on all the time. It's just complete access. Just pull it out. You're there. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of fun. And I think I got that from that biblical life. You hang around with the right guys. Quite a team to hang around with, and you learn from a good buddy who everybody knows, and you know what I'm saying, that you pick up on all that. But all that was all I want people to understand. All that was pre-planned. All those souls that people think are 12 stupid fishermen or whatever, that was all pre-planned way before. I mean, beyond time, that there was going to be this Christ period, and all these guys were going to come in. I mean, the way Jesus found these 12 guys was from their torch or from their light. They could stand in a huge sea of people, but he could walk in and they could see it. That's the one. And so they were given stuff, but the way it's portrayed is that they're complete idiots, and they're bumbling fools in a lot of ways. And nothing happened until after Pentecost. And that's when everything started to change. And, there's some truth to that, I suppose, in what metamorphosis took place for reasons. But if you remember Elijah and Elisha, Elisha followed Elijah around for a long time, and the only thing he really asked for was a double dose of whatever Elijah had. And Elisha did the most miracles of anybody other than Jesus. But when the mantle falls, that's a heavy mantle to carry. And in that time, the mantle fell into 12 different hands because it was so heavy to carry. And so it's a different time period, different focus. And what has come forward is a bastardized version of those days. And it's a bastardized version of the truth. And they've made it so complex when it was really so simple. And lots to be learned. I'm not here to judge what people do, but as long as they understand where their social conditioning came from, they're socially conditioned to believe certain things. If you grow up in India, you grow up in Indiana, you grow up wherever, you're going to be socially conditioned into that particular country, that religion that your parents may have. And as long as they can step away from that at some point and say, okay, I was socially conditioned to believe that, but is that real? And people have to go out on their own and they have to interpret those things and they have to find the resources. And with the internet now, you don't have to go away to a mystery school. You can sit in your own den and find those things. You want to read the Dead Sea Scrolls? Well, then look it up. You can. And that's the beauty of it. You don't have to have clergy telling you. You can figure it out yourself. But people are needing to take time to do that. And that's where the evolution of consciousness comes, is by their own acceptance of knowledge. And there's enough clues that we have all left ourselves, because since reincarnation is what it is, when you write the books, they always want you to write books. The reason for it is it's a clue for when you and your friends come back, you can read that book that you left in the last lifetime. So there's so many clues. It's like Sherlock Holmes just finding the clues that he left at the previous crime scene. And that's, a simplistic view of it. But yeah, we did leave a lot of clues for ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have a powerful energy. I could probably I mean, it's all, you've heard it all. It's all been done for you before. There's nothing new that I'm probably going to tell you. But, with talking about 2024 and talking about people, can believe what they believe. One thing I want to share, just kind of in acknowledging, 2024 and what people need to hear, is that, you don't have to believe what everyone else believes because it's been handed down to you. You also don't need anyone else to help you believe anything.
Right.
That if you sit with yourself and really know yourself, you'll know what is right. And honestly, if we could just get back to each of us finding a way to contribute more good and light in the world for ourselves and for others, this is what's going to, turn the tables for us to get back to a beautiful world. There's good things happening, but we have so much negative too. It's such a teeter-totter constantly, but there is hope, and the 2024 has a lot of good coming. It's going to be challenging for people who aren't ready for it, but those that are riding the wave into awakening, I feel like it's going to be a good thing. So.
Any dead folks, well, what we call dead folks, are completely alive, just FYI listeners, they're completely alive, but out of body, I'll call them out of body folks. Anybody want to talk?
Who is the man who would be the J name for you? J-O, John or Joe, Joseph, not Joseph. I want to place him older than you and out to your side. So it's either going to be an in-law or an acquaintance, probably not a family member for you unless it's an uncle or an uncle-in-law. The J name can also be a middle name.
James?
James would be a connection for me, possibly, but let me go further with that and see what he wants to say. Well, I don't know. I don't know if you're going to know who this is. You probably will if you think about it long enough. He's talking about documentation or paperwork regarding someone. And I feel like someone if I were to explain this to you, like, let's say this is an uncle. I'm going to make this up. Let's say it's an uncle, and he's saying, hey, you've got grandpa's documentation, and someone else in the family was hoping to have some of this or needs some of this for some reason. He might be coming through to say, hey, you have this documentation that someone else needs or wants in the family. This is what I feel like this man is saying, but I don't know if it's family or if it's work related or what that means. Does that make any sense to you?
Well, could be. Just trying to put a J name to it. Do they give a description of their job, of their occupation?
So it would be someone around you who has a job that would be um, something that they did some kind of accomplishment where it was something historic or something documented. So, like an award or an acknowledgement. And so, that for me is typically military or law enforcement, but it doesn't mean that's what it is. But that's what the reference would be for me is like military or law enforcement. Could be something that I'm not familiar with. I also will say if the J name is the only thing messing you up, don't fixate on that because it could be someone else they're trying to bring through. But I feel like this man would have passed at an age that feels a little younger than he should have been. So I don't feel like he lived into his 90s. He could have been in his 60s, but he wouldn't have been much older than that.
Not from a homicide, suicide, or accident?
So as you said that, I'm getting head pain, and I definitely feel like his passing would have involved his head or upper body, and most likely in a trauma type situation or a quick passing. I'm not seeing it, I'm just feeling it.
I did have an uncle who died from a brain cancer that went pretty quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you know anything about documentation that someone needs?
It's not striking me, but
Okay.
maybe not. I mean,
It's okay. I'll leave it with you. Let me see if he has anything else or something else he would like to say. So he showed me a little bit more of that. This is a great thing, again, for me to explain to people. So if I just sat with it for a minute, I got more information. What I'm seeing is what looks like could be a newspaper article, could be some paperwork on him that is in a box that nobody knows about or hasn't thought about for years. And at some point, someone's going to pull this out and be like, oh my gosh, did you know about this? And they're going to share it with the family, and you're going to see that, and you're going to go, oh, this is that thing that Danny was talking about. So he could have been in the paper for something, he could have been acknowledged for something, I don't know, but it'll come to light in the right timing. And then he brings through another family member, but this is an older female. So I see her with like curlers in her hair. So in her younger years, this would have been how she would have done her hair. And I feel like she would be an old school like that. I see her with like the knee stockings and older style glasses. And I feel like she's been gone a while. So this could be his mom, maybe, or a grandmother for you. Although if it fits for someone else in the family, just know it's going to be a generation one or two above you. There's also a W name, but where does the W name come in with a like a surname, like a last name?
but I had a William, but that wouldn't have been a last name.
That's funny because William is what I heard because my mom's maiden name is Williams, but who would William be then?
My biological father.
Oh, okay. So maybe this is just how he got me to that. So let me just ask what he would like to share.
He was showing up earlier, so I figured that might be him.
Yep. Um, he just is telling me that this is a time of passing the torch, is what I feel like he's saying. And kind of what he's saying is like, you've lost your biological dad, you're about to lose another father figure. And it's almost like they're passing that torch of patriarch energy onto you now. And so now you get to be that person in the family. I
That's
feel
all. That
like
also means you're next on the menu.
next on the menu.
Ah,
Yes, my sugar coater would never say it that way, but
yes,
yes, you're
yes,
absolutely right.
yes.
I feel like though, just know that he's very much at peace, knowing that you're at peace with everything. I feel like you've processed a lot of stuff in regards to father and stepfather and things like this, but I feel like you're in a good place. If I could tell you anything, there's support and love coming through from him, which I feel like is needed in this day and age for you. But I also don't feel like you need anything from him specifically. So know that he understands that as well. But a lot of pride coming through. And I know that as you say your goodbye, as this new transition is happening, it's just a closing of a chapter for you. And we move on to the next thing.
Cycle of life.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
I have a daughter who passed some years ago, and on occasion she will come through uh, just to give me an update on her status because she took off for some schooling on the other side. Kind of fun.
Was there addiction for her?
Yep.
She's a smart aleck.
Yes, she is.
She very much, when I asked for her energy, was very present, but almost wants to give you a hard time, like, you don't need Dani to communicate with me. Why are you asking for me? And I feel like she's giving you a little bit of shit because you already know she's present. And so she's blowing a kiss with that.
Mhm.
Very fun energy, very strong-willed, had a lot of her own battles with darkness in this world, but as you well know, very much at peace, and you'll see her again. The two of you are not done.
Uh, True. And I think she may be headed back this way pretty quick.
And that could be why I'm saying it that way. So if she's
Yeah,
going to come back into this world, you may see her in this lifetime again.
I think so. We've got, yep. So maybe grandchild, something of that nature, maybe. We'll
Mhm.
see. Yeah.
That's cool.
If her brother wants to put up with her for another round. So
Might be their karmic debt.
it
Who
could,
knows?
and you never know about these things. It's always fun. So yeah, that's good. Yeah. And I'm just thinking about the J. I think I got it figured out. But what I want to point out to folks is when Dani or any other reader tells you that I'm going to leave this with you, it's because it may not be something you recollect right at the moment, but a week from now or 2 weeks from now, all of a sudden, it just dawns on you, or you get signs and you go, oh, well, that's what it was. Well, I was so stupid, I didn't remember that. So that's part of it too. And I think people need to understand when they say you're going to let it sit with you, that's for you to contemplate on, because there's something to that.
Yeah. So, some people have terrible memories. And so oftentimes they might need something to trigger their memory for an event or a situation, and I think in the beginning as a medium, you struggle with that because you want to understand it. You want the client to understand it. And Spirit very clearly has told me it's none of my business. Like, give the information and move on. So when I feel like, okay, this client isn't going to pick it up right now, okay, I'll leave it with you and you'll understand it in the right timing or you won't. I had a client today who said, I got to give you some validations. You said you talked about this and this and this, and all of these things, happened. But if we'd have sat there that day, she'd have never been able to understand it. She had to have time to process or things to happen. So yeah, we can't get stuck on things. We just got to keep moving forward. And again,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm just going to switch gears for just a second, because the listener's going to ask about angels. Are you talking to angels? What is the difference in guides, angels, and so forth? And if there are angels, which ones are around us, and how do you know the difference?
Yeah, so I have clients who will ask me who their guardian angel is, what archangels might be working with them, things like this. And so I do tap into those realms. I do stay in more of the psychic and mediumship for the majority of my work.
Mhm.
But when it's needed or when someone asks for it, I will tap in and show them times in their life when the guardian angel showed up, what kind of events happened. The guardian angel may give me a feeling about their energy or a name if they want to have them associate with something. Of course, guardian angels were never humans. They don't necessarily have a human name. But whatever's for the human experience, they'll give me. And I work with several of the archangels, so they often show up for people for different things. And I would, if I were just to explain it in the way that I understand it, we're all spirit beings. Now, whether you call that dead people, ghost, angel, archangel, whatnot, just different levels. It's just different levels of vibrations that those people or souls are classified in. So, there are some that were never human. I know guardian angels and archangels, most of them were not ever perceived to be human. And again, this could be just our perception, but for the most part, could you consider your family members angels? Yes, technically they're spirit, you could call that an angel. But what I consider angels specifically are going to be that guardian angel that protects you throughout your lifetime. Angels that show up when people die. I have seen beautiful beings of light, angels that show up for that. And archangels are angels. But honestly, we are angels too, because we are given wings when we hit the spirit realm, right? We are an angel of light, or a light being. So it's just a terminology. It's just a label, but that's how I see it.
I agree with that. Yep, it's true. So, well, fantastic. Danny, tell us what's going on in your life, books or projects, or so that we can send the listeners to your products.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you check out my website, psychicmediumdanijo.com, and you go to the events tab, this will show you all of the classes. I'm teaching quite a bit, mediumship and spiritual development. And this year, actually, I have a whole slew of classes that will be going up on a whole nother page on my website where people can take little mini courses on different subjects. I have a couple of books in the work. I don't think that I'll publish in 2024 unless, God willing, something happens to get that out. But I do have several books that I'm writing, some of it channeled through a set of guides that call themselves the Three Wise Men. And this is King Leo, Gideon, and Moses, who kind of have a story that they want to tell about hope, faith, and love.
Good guys. I highly recommend them.
Yes, and I feel like that's a part of the reason we have a connection. So definitely that's a project that I want to focus on. But I really am teaching quite a bit, seeing clients still. So check out all those things there, and follow us on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram.
Well, for the listeners, Dani Jo does just a fantastic job, and we've got our 50th anniversary show here coming up, and so we wanted to find someone who just does an excellent job to highlight, what psychic mediumship's all about. So I am going to endorse her as somebody you should get a hold of. I know she's busy, but stand in line. It'll be worth it. And I hope with the demonstrations that she provided you here with Tommy and I mean, there was tons of validation with all this. At least for mine, I can say that. And I think for Tom as well. So she is the above 90 percentile, definitely. And that's a AAA rating for me anyway. So Tom, you got anything to wrap up with?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for coming back and sharing your time with us and your knowledge and your experience. We're trying to get this message out about the metaphysical, and boy, you're the superstar in that realm to share that message with the audience. So thank you.
Thank you. Truly, it's truly an honor to be with you guys again. And I just love and appreciate your time as well. So thanks for having me.
Well, we loved having you. And for everybody here on the Metaphysical Mysteries, Tommy and I will be back with another guest. And man, take a look at Dani's stuff, because I think you're going to really enjoy it. So for all of us here, we will see you soon.